Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. So exciting video today, guys. I've got the brand new and much anticipated release by MILIFORTIC, the S089, aka the Alpi homage. Now, we've not had a single proper Alpinist homage to date. We've had a couple of single crown versions, the Tic Tac crossovers, but nothing with the dual crown that we all know and love from Seiko. Now, the Alpinist itself has plenty of history and reputation behind it, and in my opinion, it's definitely one of the, well, I hold it as the best looking field watch across the board. I mean, just look at it. Sunray dials, a slick case, and an inner compass bezel. So it's a true field watch if I ever saw one. So today I'm going to be reviewing the MILIFORTIC S089 against the Gen Seikos, and also giving my thoughts on the S089 as a standalone watch. Let's start off with the technical details. So as far as dimensions go, it's very close to the OGs, and I don't think anybody wants a smaller version, as the sizing is pretty much perfect. Of course, you do get the odd Viking who wants it at 49mm. So the MILIFORTIC actually comes in thinner than the originals. For reference, between the Saab 17 and the later gens like the SPB 197 I've got here, there's a difference between them. The Saab is 12.5mm and the SPB is 13mm, but the MILIFORTIC comes in at 11.7mm using a Seiko NH35. Now the log-to-log also stands with minimal difference. The MILIFORTIC is dead on 46mm while the others are just a smidge more. And the specs are the same too, with minor differences. AR coated sapphire crystal, a screw down crown and a screw down case back. The MILIFORTIC states 100 meters, and I think they could have stretched it to 150, but I think it's the same either way. The Seiko comes with 200 meters of actual water resistance. Movement wise, the MILIFORTIC's gone with the Seiko NH35, whereas the Saab 17 has the problematic 6R15 and the SPB has an even more problematic 6R35 with a 70-hour power reserve and absolutely shite timekeeping. The amount of 6R35s out there which are not functioning to spec is ridiculous. So in that sense, the NH35 is a lot more reliable for accuracy. Now the price wise, the MILIFORTIC is retailing for just under £180, which is probably the most expensive watch. But against the Alpinist, the Saab 17, obviously which is discontinued, expect to pay around 500 or more for used. And the SPB versions of the Alpinist, depending on the colorway, anywhere from 350 to around the £600 on the used market. I mean, brand new, I paid £600 for this, and it was on sale. So the difference is somewhat substantial for the average watch enthusiast. So now regarding the review for the actual MILIFORTIC, I'm just going to speak about this watch, how it is, how it's made, the build quality, etc. and compare when needed against the Seiko alternatives. The thing is, the colorways we have available, you've got the good old sunburst green, you do have a black dial with gold hour markers, and finally the one that I found most interesting is the bicolor steel, accented gold crown and bezel. I think this one's a little more expensive, around the £190-ish mark, and I think they can potentially add to the colors as Seiko have done if this does sell well. So the main curiosity I had when I saw that they would be releasing this was on how the casework would be and the finishing. It's very easy to recreate the dial and hands. They are already all over Aliexpress as watch parts. And when I took this out of the box, everything looked great. Straight away you can tell this is really well made. You've got smooth steel, the polished bezel, and so on. But when I actually got the watches in hand and put them side to side, I was disappointed in the Seiko Alpinist, to be fair, because there isn't that much of a difference, particularly in the finishing. It's pretty much exactly the same. The only reason I'm not saying it's 100% the same is because I don't know the processes for both cases, the process they've been through, but visually, for sure, very extremely close. The bezel on the MILIFORTIC is polished to a mirror finish, and it's a slim bezel, which is what I like. Just surrounds and highlights the case rather than obscure it. Now it is slightly a touch on the steeper side in comparison to the bezel on the Seiko Alpinist. What I find with the Seiko, it does have a slightly larger, flatter ring around the case. Now I'm not trying to gauge how close the MILIFORTIC is in terms of replication of the Seikos, I'm just pointing at observable differences. Now moving on to the case, you do have fine vertical satin brushing along the lugs, and you've got the polished bevel along the edges, which then merges into the polished sides, and that's the same for around the top of the crown guards, and the finishing has been done flawlessly by MILIFORTIC. Now between the two, you will notice that the MILIFORTIC has slightly more definition around the edges. The polished bevel and the lugs stand out a little more than they do on the Seiko, which has been blended a little more for that smoother effect. Now neither are better in my opinion, that's just the difference that we see between the two. Now when we turn the watch over, this is where I feel Seiko does prevail, and I've seen this on Seiko watches across the board, and the focus here is on the lug tips. So you can see on this MILIFORTIC, and I've seen the same thing on the chronograph that I recently reviewed, just take a look how edgy those lug tips are. Now in comparison to the Seiko, where it's just a lot smoother. Now personally, I don't like to see edgier lugs. However, it doesn't impact the comfort on wrist at all. I've worn it around and I can't feel them at all. It's just an in-hand feel. Function-wise, the MILIFORTIC does pass the test with flying colors. The crown size is also very similar to that of the Seikos. It's got very good grip and very smooth threading. Function is all good on the main crown. When we check the secondary crown that operates that internally rotating compass bezel, it does have really good friction. It's not very loose at all, and it's likely to maintain the position throughout the day without just randomly moving off. Now, what I can't comment on is consistency, because this is the only model I've seen, and this is something that Seiko does struggle with. For example, on the Saab 17, it's got very similar friction to what I can feel on the MILIFORTIC. However, on the SPB version, and I've seen some of the other color versions to this particular generation, that is very loose and it does change throughout the day. Now visually there's a slight difference too, so the MILIFORTIC crown sticks out quite a bit more than it does on the ones from the Seiko. They do go in a little bit more. I think between the two I do prefer the slightly more subset second crown, but on this MILIFORTIC again it's not that big of a problem. So far I can say the MILIFORTIC is performing exceptionally well. Now when we get to the watch face, it is so nicely done. They have definitely captured the Alpinist vibe. Polished applied markers, an understated black sunray dial with printed text. Now I personally don't have an issue with the brand name, and maybe that's because of reviewing randomly named watches for so long. And yeah, some sort of applied logo would have looked better, but this is what we currently have. The inner bezel and that detailed printed minute track are all printed precisely, perfectly, and with strong legibility. Now the compass ring is slightly bigger than the one that you get on the Seiko, and I do prefer the slimmer compass bezel on the Seiko. Now the date mag on the MILIFORTIC is clear and magnified to the correct level, no difference to the one on the SPB. And I also love the use of that black date wheel. It works really well, but for this I would have opted for the black wheel with the gold font, and I've actually got some of those date wheels with me, so I'm half tempted to mod it. Handset wise, I have to say I do prefer the Seiko Cathedral Hour Hand as a preference, but the hands on the MILIFORTIC are equally as good, fully polished. But if I were to be pedantic, I'd say the hands could use a touch more length. I mean like 0.1 or something, very minimal. And that's what the Seiko does get spot on. And like I said, it's a very minimal thing, but you can see it just has a slightly better effect. And finally, lume wise on the dial, it is very decent. You've got tiny pips around the Arabics just as reference points, and they're pretty bright. And the handset also has a very good glow, and it's not too far off the Seiko as well. So down to the strap options. Yeah, I have whinged about MILIFORTIC slapping on the generic leather bands. Here they've gone for a dive watch strap. The strap is high quality and supple and everything great, but I don't think it suits the watch in my opinion. It's not to my liking, shall we say, and at £190, I really want this watch to have a bracelet. Just as it is on a rubber strap, it does make it a little steep, but I do get it. There's cost for tooling. It's a new case essentially, probably smaller batch numbers, which means the cost of the first batch is going to be quite high. So as a compromise, after they sell these, I'd want them to make a bracelet for this, something very decent. And I know you guys are going to ask, I did try the Miltap bracelet from my Saab 17. So let me show you what it actually does when I do fit it on. And it's so damn close, right? I was about to get excited because the end links do actually fit, but there's a few millimeters missing. So what ends up happening is that the end link just moves back and forward. So when it's going to be on wrist, it's not going to look great. So here's a wrist shot, and I love this accented colorway. It does really stand out, and it gives a classier look to the best looking field watch. Build quality is apparent, right? I have a reference point next to the watch and they've done it justice and executed it really well. Now, I really do want a bracelet to be made for this and sold separately, and some more cool colorways. But as it stands, I think MILIFORTIC are really stepping out to really show how good they can make watches. And this one is probably one of the best executed watches out there. So that's it from me today, guys. What's your thoughts on this so far? Let us know below in the comments section, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you all for watching.